Let's talk about name dropping. So when do you name drop? When you have someone in common, you know that the other person knows them. So it's a friend, it's a business associate, it's an acquaintance, could be a family member, whatever it is. But when you have someone in common, and or when somebody has referred you to somebody, that is when you use this technique. Do not use it when you just want to name drop a big name for somebody. That can be off-putting, especially if the other person doesn't know who that person is. So if you're not sure if somebody knows somebody, again, go check and look at their LinkedIn, connections. Look at their friend connections on Facebook. See who do they know that you could name drop. And I only use name dropping when the introduction is not appropriate. As a matter of fact, I had a client reach out to me not too long ago and asked for me to make an introduction on her behalf. Now, 9 times out of 10, I say yes. But in this particular case, the person that she was asking me to make an introduction with, we had met like twice at some networking meetings. I knew she would know my name, but I didn't think that me sending an email to her would feel very like out of the blue, like, why is Nikki contacting me? So in that particular case, I just recommended that my client name drop me. And then that way, if the woman had any nice feelings towards me at all, she might be willing to at least read the message and or take that next step. So name dropping is definitely an effective way to open some doors. I always think when people name drop and I know the other person, it will get my attention enough to either get on a call with them and or respond to their message. So you're kind of writing the coattails of the person, the credibility that the person has that you've name dropped. It's not quite as effective as introductions. That's my first pick for you. But this is the next best thing, is to name drop when you have someone in common. I'll give you an example of what not to do. A few years back, I had somebody reach out to me through LinkedIn. He did a pretty good kind of initial connection. We did schedule a time to get on the phone, and he started using this name dropping technique. He was like, well, I see that you're connected to this person. Like, we've worked with them. And I said, well, I know I'm connected to that person, but I don't really know them that well. And he's like, oh, okay, well, you must know so-and-so because they're a really big deal in your industry. And I was like, no, I don't actually know that person. And he's like, well, then you definitely know. And he like name dropped somebody else. And I was like, no, I don't know that person either. So part of me as the prospect now, I'm starting to feel kind of dumb. Like, gosh, Nikki, why don't I know any of these people? But then he keeps going. He keeps dropping all these names. And now I'm starting to kind of feel like, are you trying to make me feel dumb? Because that's not a good way to earn my business. And after he dropped about like 8 to 10 names, I finally said, look, totally understand the technique that you're using here of name dropping. And in this particular case, it's just not working. So maybe we should switch gears and use a different technique. And he was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, you definitely know this person then, right? And it just got to the point where I finally was like, you know what? I've tried to be really nice about this. I don't know any of the people that you are saying, and I'm sure they're a really big deal in a lot of different, areas. It's just not anybody that I know. So I just feel like this is not a good fit for you and I. And he got really offended. And then he called me a C-level celebrity, which was like, I was super flattered by, frankly, because I don't think of myself. Definitely not a celebrity. Definitely not a C-level celebrity. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you. Nice talking to you. Click, hang up, right? So if you are using name dropping and the other person is saying like, I don't know that person. I don't know that person. Then I always say abort. Like, stop using this technique. If what you're doing is not working, do something else. All right. Now I'm not trying to share that story with you to tell you never to use name dropping. You just need to use it strategically and effectively. You need to make sure that the other person knows the person that you're name dropping. Okay. All right. So here's what I would like for you to do is I want you to come up with a list of at least 3 people who are well known that you know, who you could use for a name drop. Now you need to know these people. Like, don't name drop Oprah unless you are friends with Oprah, right? Like name drop people that other people would know. Like could be anybody that's going to work for you, right? Like I mentioned in a previous training that I work a lot with photographers, and I actually said her name as if I would want an introduction to her, but Nikki Klosser is somebody who is a client of mine. I could name drop Nikki Klosser, and that would probably open some doors with some photographers. Oftentimes photographers recognize her name if I use her name, right? But if I use her name and they don't recognize her name, if they're not connected to her in some way, I wouldn't use her name. Okay, so think about who are those 3 people that you could write down. And then here is, if we were calling somebody, what I might say, hi, Lisa, this is Nikki Rausch from Sales Maven. Did I catch you at a bad time? And then I would name drop. And in this case, in the handout here on page 8, it says, Tara Evans mentioned the other day that you might be looking for someone to coach you on increasing your sales and suggested I reach out to you. Do you have a few minutes to chat? Now I asked a question, so I got to zip it and wait for them to answer. Now, if I was going to send an email message that's similar message, I'm going to add a little bit more to the email. So on page 9 of your workbook, here is a potential name dropping email message. So in my subject line, I'm going to actually put the person's name. So I might say here, Tara Evans suggested we connect. And then I would say, hi, Lisa. Tara Evans mentioned the other day that you might be looking for someone to coach you on increasing your sales and suggested that I reach out to you. Is that still the case? So I'm going to ask the question. Sales coaching is something entrepreneurs like you have been hiring me to do for the last 6+ years. Would you be open to setting up a time to chat and see how I might best be a resource to you? And then I say, in case you like this idea, here are a few possible times. You've seen this language from me a few times. All right, so now it's your turn. Write down who are your 3 potential name drops, and then craft your messaging so that you can start implementing, that you can start reaching out to people and using this name dropping technique. All right, good luck, and move on to the next training.